First of all, happy to welcome you all here to the mayor's office. Inside, I had mentioned we moved all the furniture out for you guys, and it's interesting to see so much free floor here. So welcome, and I'm happy you guys are here to do the first interview that we've done since our election victory in the special election the other night. It was a historic win. It was 72% victory for us, and I'm so grateful to the people of Milwaukee, all of our voters from across the city that propelled us to this monumentous victory here in the city. And so I'm looking forward to serving, or to continue serving as mayor. We've got a lot of work to do, and I'm looking forward to getting to that work, working in collaboration, not just with members of the Common Council, but our partners at other levels of government, be they county, state, the federal government, and our community partners as well.
Mayor, who have you talked to today?
I got here this afternoon and started making phone calls. I told folks that I would do that right away, trying to repair that relationship with the state. Haven't had the opportunity to speak with them just yet, but I've got a call into Speaker Voss. I'm waiting right now for the opportunity to speak with Senator Lemahue as well.
What do you plan to say to them when they call you back? You've talked with them before.
I've talked to Speaker Voss before, and what I'm going to tell them is this, is that it's a new day in Milwaukee. I'm the mayor now, and I said throughout the entire course of this campaign that I want to rebuild the relationship with state government. I'm serious about that, because I recognize and understand the importance that of working with state government in order to move the ball forward for Milwaukee. And so I want to build those relationships. I want to have a new relationship with them, and I'm on the first day in office. I'm making those calls, and I'm setting that relationship up.
So you're making calls. Tell me what are your short-term goals. I mean, we know that a lot of people want reckless driving to stop. Homicides are up. We want those to go down, a lot of people say. So what's the plan? Yeah,
short-term goals on those. I put out plans on reckless driving, on public safety, on economic prosperity over the course of the past number of weeks. So we'll work to continue implementing those plans. I mentioned a number of weeks ago that we're investing $8.5 million in infrastructure upgrades across the city. So we'll work to continue implementing those things to combat the scourge of reckless driving that we have here in the city. I'll also be working closely, very closely, with the police department, with Chief Norman, and all the staff there to make sure that we have folks out in our traffic safety unit working to combat the scourge of reckless driving in Milwaukee as well. Part of the reason that I'm working to build a relationship with the state is because at the local level we don't control gun law. So we need our partners at the state level to be here with us to work on that issue, to make sure that that guns don't end up in the hands of people who would cause death, harm, and destruction in our communities in the first place. And so that's one of the things that I also will be working to address with them in the future as well.
When do we see results? When do you expect results?
On some of these things, they'll happen, very soon. We talked previously about addressing the issue of reckless driving, and I know, this spring, the Department of Public Works will be putting out some more immediate fixes on reckless driving, not permanent fixes, but temporary ones. That'll be sort of a stopgap until we're able to get the work done and the funding in place for the more permanent solutions on reckless driving that we're working on for the foreseeable future here. In terms of having progress on these calls with legislators, look, I said I'm going to have a cot in the Capitol. I've already made those calls, started making those calls today. I'll continue to make those calls. The relationship building, I think, will take some time, but I am willing, I am able to make the time to build those relationships. It's too important to the future of the city to not do it.
Mayor, turnout in this election was one of the lowest, if not the lowest, for a mayor's race. What do you make of that?
It's a special election that is not the general four-year term, but at the end of the day, it was an election, and we need people to be involved in our process. We need people to be involved in the democratic process. And so I'd like to see more people registering to vote and getting out to vote, letting their voices be heard. Now, this is a big deal, but it doesn't just stop here. There are big elections coming up later this year as well for governor of the state of Wisconsin, as well as United States Senator and other races up and down the ticket. So I encourage voters to make sure that they raise their voice, they go to the polls, that they vote. And not only themselves, but they also encourage their friends and their family members, those folks in their network, also to get up and go vote too.
Mayor, you talked about having a good relationship with the council. How do you plan to repair the relationship specifically with the other Black council members? What's your first step on that?
I think we've already started making some headway there. And look, I'm a collaborative person. As I said last night, I'll listen to any idea. No idea is too big. No idea is too small. And it doesn't matter where the idea comes from, right? If it's a good idea that'll help to move the city forward, then I want to listen. And I want to be a partner in that. I've talked about that throughout the course of the campaign as well, too, that partnerships are the path forward. So whether it's with somebody that I've had disagreements with in the past, that doesn't matter to me. I want to work to make sure that we're doing what's best for Milwaukee, even if it comes from those alders too.
You said there's specific steps you've taken already. What are they?
Yeah, I mean, I've had some calls, some very good calls with alders, and we'll continue to build that relationship here in City Hall as well.
What's your message specifically to the Black voters as well as Black people who live in the city of Milwaukee? I think they demand a lot from you because you look like us.
Yeah, and I talked about this during the campaign as well, that I lived in the most depressed neighborhoods in Milwaukee, right? I know what it's like to be a victim of crime, of gun violence, to be hungry, to move around a lot growing up. It wasn't lost on me last night that there was a young boy who was one of the first people I talked to when I went into the ballroom. He was 9 years old, and I happened to see him at church this past Sunday at Holy Redeemer, and he had begged his grandmother to come down to our victory party last night because he wanted to see me, he wanted to be a part of that. And to me, it says to young people that look like him, young people that look like me, in those same challenged neighborhoods that I grew up in, that in Milwaukee, there's an opportunity for you too, right? It doesn't matter what color you are. People in this city, including people of color, want the same things. They want to have peaceful, quiet enjoyment of their neighborhoods. They want to have opportunities for themselves and for their family. They want access to a good quality education. They want a community that doesn't have violence erupting. They don't want to go to sleep to the sounds of gunfire. They don't want for there to be reckless driving on the roads. These are not things that white voters or white citizens in Milwaukee want that African Americans don't. They want it too. And those are things because of the neighborhoods that I grew up in and the neighborhood that I live in now that I'll be seeking to deliver for African Americans and really all the people who live in this city.
So, Mayor, how do we know that you've delivered? At the end of this term, when you are looking back, how do Milwaukee and some people you just described know that Cavalier Johnson's administration made a difference?
Yeah, when you look at some of the things that we've already done, right, I think there are things that are tangible. And I think that's one of the best things to show. Last night when I was at the Hilton, I had the opportunity to look across the street and see Milwaukee Tool coming to life. That's tangible. That's up to 2,000 family supporting jobs, right? Family supporting jobs that'll be here in the city of Milwaukee and accessible to the people who live here, right? That's something that's tangible that they can see. That's a deliverable, and it's something that I worked on here in City Hall in order to make that happen. You go down the street from there, and the Couture is coming out of the ground. It's going to have 1 million construction hours, and of those 1 million construction hours, 40% or 400,000 are going to go to people who live in the most depressed neighborhoods in Milwaukee, the same neighborhoods that I grew up in, giving them an access point to a family supporting job in a 21st century economy, right? Those are tangible things. You talk about the issue of reckless driving, and you see the changes that we will make to the roadway, the built infrastructure in Milwaukee to stop people from driving recklessly. Those are things that people will look and say and feel and say, we've had an impact. The Johnson administration has had an impact over the course of these next 2 years.
You're the first new mayor for the city in nearly 20 years. What is different about your approach from Tom Barrett's approach when he was in office?
Well, I think that my approach is certainly going to be collaborative, will be collaborative. but I'm also going to expect results, and I'm going to expect accountability. I will be a mayor who goes to departments, who goes to visit staff, who pops in to check in, to see what's going on the ground. When I was on the Common Council, when I would call into, say, 286 City, I never said who I was. I never mentioned that I was an alderman at all. And the reason for that is because I wanted to see how citizens are being treated when they interact with the city, when they interface with the city and receive city services. I'll do the same thing as mayor. I'll walk into locations where the city is serving citizens across Milwaukee. I'll see what the service is, and I'll offer critiques and help the departments to rise up so they're serving the citizens and our visitors and our commuters the best way possible every single day.
Mayor, we have heard from some voters. It was the topic of conversation today on some radio stations in Milwaukee. There's a segment of people who are convinced there's some type of cover-up involving the arrest of your brother. What do you say to them?
That I know that my opponent in the mayor's race was floating that, and quite frankly, I think it's disappointing because for 20 years he claimed to be Mr. Public Safety and was this huge supporter of police, and now in the waning moments of a political campaign, he threw the police under the bus, for a political purpose. I said it the other day, and I will say it again. I mean, those allegations are completely false, and they're completely ridiculous, and Bob knows that as well, too.
Mayor, how are you framing this historic win with your children at home? What are those conversations like, that this has been a historic thing for Milwaukee?
My son, who is older, he's 11 years old, and so he was born in 2010, and so he was born under the presidency of an African American, right? And so there's this next generation of kids that are growing up who can see a president as being a black person, and for the beginning of their life at least, that's all that they knew, right? So my election, I think, is further beginning to normalize what it means for people of color to have access to the seat of power. So my kids recognize that, and I think importantly, outside of my own home, it gives voice, it gives a reflection to those kids who, without any further opportunity, may take a different path in life. But now they see that if they work hard, if they are committed, if they're focused, and they serve, then in Milwaukee, the sky is the limit. They could be doctors, they could be lawyers, they could be nurses, they could be teachers, they could be trade unionists, they could be business people, executives, and they can also be the mayor. And I think that's important. It brings a smile to my face. Like I said, my son knows that, and I think kids now in Milwaukee will start to see that so much more now too.
Mayor, so many cities across the nation have reached this milestone decades or years before Milwaukee. Why do you think we're having this conversation in 2022 and so many other places have been here, so much longer before?
I can't speak to the other places around the country. I know that historically here, though, in Milwaukee, we tend to hang on to incumbents for some time. So I think that certainly is a part of it. I think a part of it too, quite frankly, is the fact that if you're a person of color running for a citywide, a countywide, a statewide seat in Milwaukee, because we don't have this strong and developed African American middle class, having access to the resources to run and win at this level is very difficult. It's extremely difficult to do. And so it may be different in some other parts of the country for African Americans to have gotten to that point, but I think those are two of the larger contributing factors. Is that it wasn't for lack of trying for African Americans. It's difficult to run and win big races in this city and in this state, especially if you're a person of color.
Mayor, there was one ward on the south side that was evenly split, 151 votes for you, 151 for Donovan. Obviously, a very small microcosm in this neighborhood. Largely speaking, though, what do you make of the divide in this city? Is there a divide in this city, and what's your role now in that?
Yeah, in Milwaukee and in Wisconsin generally, we've had a long history of these institutional problems, and segregation, of course, being one of those issues as well. My role is this, or my view is this, rather, like, I'm going to be a mayor for everybody in the city, using the experience that I've had growing up in Milwaukee as my center point, because I know that when you raise the tide for the least of these in this community, it lifts the tide for everybody, right? So if you focus in on the neighborhoods that I grew up in, and you make sure that those places are safe, and the neighborhoods are not porous, and the people who live there are not transient, right? Those neighborhoods, they become stable. And if those neighborhoods and the people in them become stable, then the neighborhoods begin to gel. And if those neighborhoods gel and become cohesive, that's how you get to true public safety. And if they have access to family support and work, that presents them opportunities to live and get beyond the neighborhoods where they had been trapped for so long. That helps to address the issue of segregation that we have in Milwaukee, and something that I'm very interested in working on as mayor.
Mayor, you have 2 years left on this unexpired term from former Mayor Barrett. Does it affect how you approach anything, knowing that you only have 2 years in this term before another election for a full term?
I don't think so. I will do my job in this office to the best of my ability, regardless if there's an election in 2 years, or if I'm fortunate enough to be elected in 2024 as well, 4 years away. Every single day I will give my best to be the mayor of this city and move the ball forward in Milwaukee for everybody.
Is that a re-election announcement right there?
Well, I have said from the beginning that I will run for the unexpired term, and I'll run for re-election in 2024 as well. So you can take it as a re-election announcement as well, yeah.
We can do one or two more.
You had talked about Couture, you talked about Milwaukee Tool. Those started under your predecessor. At the end of this term, is there anything that you want to kind of have your mark on?
Yeah, I think that as we approach the end of the 2-year term here, I want to see some improvements on our roadways to address the issue of reckless driving, right? I mean, that's the number one quality of life issue that residents in the city of Milwaukee tell me about. It doesn't matter if I'm on the far northwest side of the city. It doesn't matter if I'm on the south side of the city. People are concerned about that. It sticks with me that, in the rough area of town where I live in, near Midtown Center, that the Midtown Pick and Save that I go to, that's my story, and I live on the north side of Capitol, that there are people on the south side of Capitol who are afraid to cross the street because of the reckless driving activity, right? That shouldn't be, that they're going to another grocery store that's, far away from where they live because they feel like it's unsafe to cross the street to get to the closest grocery store in their neighborhood, So I want to work on that, and certainly there are and will be other things development-wise downtown as well as in the neighborhoods that I want to see, but I'll save that for post the 2-year mark.
Check with some people in the business community today to ask them about what they would like to see as top of your agenda, next steps, and they weren't saying anything about more subsidies, easier to work with DCD. It was crime. They really think violent crime as much as the reckless driving. That really needs to be addressed. What would your message be to the business community on that?
I hear them loud and clear because their concerns are the same as the people who live in the city. Again, it doesn't matter how far north you go in the city, how far south you go in the city. It doesn't matter if you live in the neighborhoods I lived in growing up, or you're a corporate executive in the business community. Folks are concerned about public safety, right? And that's something that we have to get under control in Milwaukee, so that everybody feels that this is a city where they can be safe in, where they can do business in, and is a place where people want to continue to invest in. That's what I want to see too. So again, I hear them loud and clear. They're saying the same message that the people who live in the city are saying. So there's synergy on that front.
Last night, Mayor, what was that moment like when you and your wife knew that you'd secured the win?
It was exhilarating. It was exhilarating. You know, I started off as a 14-year-old boy here in Milwaukee in the YMCA program, sponsor a scholar, and I often point to this green wristband that I wear. It's got the 4 core values of the YMCA: caring, honesty, respect, and responsibility. And I started off in that program as, you know, a young kid trying to get to college. That was the core function of the program, is to get low-income kids, poor kids from MPS to become the first person in their family to graduate college. And I did at UW-Madison. The other part of that program was service and giving back. And so that's how I got started. I was helping seniors to rake leaves and shovel snow, and it just snowballed. And I went to Chile to rebuild a school for poor kids, went to London to work with at-risk young people, went to New York City to work with the YMCA, went to New Orleans for my first spring break in college to help folks after Hurricane Katrina, then came back here and worked in workforce development, working with young people who were up at Lincoln Hills, working with seniors who were trying to retool their resume to get back to the workforce. After losing 2 races for county board supervisor, came here to the mayor's office and had the opportunity to work with the faith community and so many other just community-driven folks out of this office. And even though I had 24-hour access at that point to City Hall and to this office, I was here, you know, by myself many times. I never sat in this chair, and I said the only way that I would sit in this chair was if I was mayor. And to have been acting mayor after being council president, and to have now won an historic victory by a large margin, and to become the first African-American mayor of one of the largest cities in the United States, the largest city in Wisconsin, to see the tallies come in and to know that we had won was exhilarating.
Can you speak a little bit about, you know, there was that moment where you were standing there talking with the young boy. What was that like for you as somebody who grew up in Milwaukee, who's overcome a lot, to look at, you know, this young boy and know that he's looking up to you as the first African-American mayor of the city?
Yeah, I knew it right away that he was looking at me because of that. I knew that my name being, you know, on the wall or around the room presented an opportunity for him to see his own name on the wall and around the room, where, you know, years ago, that would have been unthinkable in this city, you know, for a kid that looked like him. Now he can think that. Now he can believe. It reminded me of you know, some of the advice that I got when I was a kid. And I got a whole, you know, a whole list of pieces of advice from people in my life, including Victor, who gave me the nickname Chevy, who spoke last night too. But when I saw him, I was reminded of the advice that my father gave me when I was a kid. And my dad told me that I needed to get off the block. And I didn't quite understand what he was saying. I thought he was talking about, you know, the 4 corners of an actual city block. But he was saying more than just that. Because for too many kids in Milwaukee, too many black and brown kids, the 4 corners of the block, your world, are, you know, school, the corner store, relative's house, you know, and home. You know, that's your whole world. There are a lot of kids who look like me that never even see Lake Michigan, you know, by the time they're a teenager. And so when I got older, I began to understand what my dad was saying about getting off your block, like expanding your horizons. And this was key because kids will be what they see. And now that little black boy gets to see a mayor who looks like him.
All right, thank you, everybody.
Great.
Thank you, Mayor.
Yeah, thanks all.